A peaceful garden interrupted by mosquitoes. Hello, my fellow nature lovers, and welcome back to Earthly Delights. If you have spent years caring for soil, planting seeds, growing food, and watching flowers come alive with bees and butterflies, you already know this feeling. A garden is more than a patch of land. It is a place of peace, patience, and connection. It is where we work with nature, not against it. But even in the healthiest, most beautiful garden, there is one tiny visitor that can turn a quiet evening outside into pure frustration. Yes, mosquitoes. They chase us back indoors, leave our arms and legs covered in itchy bites, and even worse, they can carry serious diseases like West Nile and Zika. When the mosquitoes get thick, it is easy to think the fastest solution is to call a spray service or grab a powerful chemical fogger and wipe them out. But as gardeners, we have to ask a deeper question. What else is that spray touching? What happens to the honeybees working our blossoms, the butterflies moving through our beds, the soil life beneath our feet, or the dogs and cats resting nearby? Today, we are going to look at mosquito control through the eyes of a gardener who cares about the whole living system. I will show you practical, science-backed ways to kill mosquitoes around your home while staying safe for honeybees, pets, soil, and the garden ecosystem. We have 7 important lessons to cover, so get your gardening gloves ready, and let's take back our backyard the smart, earth-friendly way. Part 1. The Invisible War in Our Gardens, the Dark Side of Chemicals. Our first lesson starts with a truth many gardeners do not like to hear, but every healthy garden depends on understanding it. When we hire a company to spray the yard with typical adulticides, those are chemicals made to kill adult mosquitoes. The problem is we are often releasing something far more damaging than we realize into a living, breathing ecosystem. Many commercial mosquito sprays rely on synthetic chemicals such as pyrethroids, including permethrin or organophosphates. And here is the painful part. These products are not selective. They do not know the difference between a biting mosquito and a honeybee working on your flowers. They do not spare butterflies, ladybugs, or the beneficial insects that help keep a garden balanced. One daytime spray can paralyze and destroy foraging bees that are simply doing their job, pollinating the plants we depend on. And the risk does not stop with insects. Permethrin is especially dangerous to cats. Because of the way cats process chemicals, they lack an important liver enzyme needed to break these compounds down safely. If a cat walks through a treated area, or even comes into contact with a recently treated dog, it may suffer serious neurological symptoms, including tremors, seizures, and life-threatening poisoning. Of course, we all want to protect our families from mosquito bites, but as gardeners, we also have to protect the soil, the pollinators, and the animals that share our space. So the real question is this: why poison the sanctuary we are trying to enjoy, when there are smarter ways to work with nature? Part 2. Know your enemy, the power of source reduction. To control mosquitoes well, you first have to understand how they live. This brings us to the second lesson: source reduction. Spraying adult mosquitoes may give you temporary relief, but it is only a surface-level fix. If you want real control, you have to stop mosquitoes before they ever become flying, biting adults. Mosquitoes are completely tied to water. A female mosquito can lay up to 300 eggs at one time, and she does not need a pond, a swamp, or a large puddle to do it. In many cases, a single tablespoon of standing water is enough. That means a clogged gutter, an old tire, a forgotten kiddie pool, a bucket, a bird bath, or even the saucer under a potted plant can quietly become a mosquito nursery. So here is one of the most useful rules I teach gardeners, the 7-day rule. If water sits still for 4 to 7 days, it can become an ideal breeding site. Your first and most important defense is a simple weekly walk around the property. Empty anything holding water. Turn buckets upside down, refresh bird baths, clear gutters. Check plant saucers, tarps, trays, and low spots where water collects. But what about water you cannot simply dump out? Maybe you have a rain barrel, an ornamental pond, or a drainage ditch that stays wet. That is where one of nature's most useful mosquito control tools comes in. Part 3. The Miracle Microbe, BTI Bacillus thuringiensis israelensis. This third lesson is where mosquito control becomes truly fascinating. There is a microscopic helper that every gardener should know about. In 1976, scientists discovered a naturally occurring soil bacterium in a stagnant pond in the Negev desert of Israel. Its full name is Bacillus thuringiensis subspecies israelensis, but gardeners usually call it BTE. BT is one of the most targeted mosquito control tools we have. It works on mosquito larvae while they are still living in water. The science is simple but brilliant. BTI produces a specific protein crystal. When mosquito larvae feed in treated water, they swallow that crystal. Inside the larva's digestive system, which is highly alkaline, with a pH around 9.0 to 10.5, the crystal breaks open and releases a toxin. That toxin damages the larva's gut, and within a few days the mosquito dies before it can ever grow wings. The remarkable part is how selective this process is. BTI is considered harmless to people, dogs, cats, birds, fish, and honeybees because their digestive systems are completely different. Humans, pets, and pollinators do not have the same alkaline gut environment, and they also lack the specific receptors this toxin needs in order to work. To us, it is simply a protein that breaks down like ordinary organic material. That is why BTI products such as mosquito dunks or mosquito bits are so valuable in a garden. When placed in rain barrels, ponds, or other standing water that cannot be dumped, they can control mosquito larvae for weeks while leaving the rest of the garden ecosystem intact. It is one of the best examples of using biology instead of broad chemical force. Part 4. Building the Bucket of Doom, the DIY BTI trap. Knowing what BTI can do is one thing, but now let's put it to work in a practical way. In the gardening world, many people call this simple method the Bucket of Doom. It sounds dramatic, but the idea is very smart. We are going to create a fake mosquito nursery that attracts female mosquitoes, encourages them to lay their eggs, and then prevents those larvae from ever becoming biting adults. Here is how to build it. Start with a dark bucket. Black or dark green is ideal because mosquitoes naturally look for dark, quiet, shaded places when they are choosing where to lay eggs. Place the bucket in a cool, shady corner of the yard, but keep it away from patios, porches, or any area where your family usually sits. Next, add a few handfuls of organic material. Grass clippings, hay, or dried leaves all work well. Then fill the bucket about halfway with water and let that mixture sit for a few days. It may develop a strong, earthy, slightly unpleasant smell, but to a female mosquito searching for a breeding spot, that scent is exactly what makes the bucket so attractive. Now comes the important step. Add a quarter of a BTI mosquito dunk or sprinkle in some mosquito bits. The mosquitoes will come, lay their eggs, and those eggs will hatch. But once the larvae begin feeding in that water, the BTI goes to work. Instead of producing a new generation of mosquitoes, that bucket becomes a trap where the larvae never survive long enough to fly away. One important gardener's tip: we still want to protect the helpful creatures in our yard. A thirsty bee, a small frog, or another beneficial visitor may end up inside the bucket. Always place a stick, branch, or small piece of wood in the bucket, leaning over the edge. This gives wildlife a simple escape ramp, so the trap targets mosquitoes without harming the friends we want to keep in the garden. Part 5. The CO2 lure, the yeast and sugar trap. Now that we have dealt with the larvae, we still have to think about the adult mosquitoes already flying around the garden. That brings us to the next method, a simple carbon dioxide trap made with yeast and sugar. Mosquitoes do not rely only on sight to find us, especially in low light. One of the main ways they track people and animals is by following the carbon dioxide we breathe out. Every breath creates a small trail of CO2, and mosquitoes are extremely good at sensing it. So with this trap, we are going to create something that gives off a similar signal and pulls mosquitoes away from where we are sitting. Start with an empty 2-liter plastic soda bottle. Cut off the top third of the bottle. In a separate container, dissolve about a quarter cup of brown sugar into 1 cup of hot boiled water. Boiling the water helps remove chlorine, which can interfere with the fermentation process. Let the mixture cool completely to room temperature, because if the water is too hot, it can kill the yeast. Once the sugar water is cooled, pour it into the bottom part of the bottle. Then add about 1 gram, or roughly 1 teaspoon, of active baker's yeast. Do not stir it. Letting the yeast sit on top helps create a slow, steady fermentation which can release carbon dioxide over time, sometimes for up to 2 weeks. Now take the top piece of the bottle, flip it upside down, and place it into the lower half like a funnel. Tape it securely in place. Then wrap the outside of the bottle with black paper or black tape, because mosquitoes are also attracted to dark, sheltered spaces. They follow the CO2 down through the funnel, but once inside, they have trouble finding their way back out and eventually fall into the liquid. Place these traps several feet away from your patio, porch, or seating area. The goal is not to invite mosquitoes closer to you, but to draw the biting adults away from your family and into the trap. Part 6. Next Level Science, Intacare and the Trojan Horse. If you want to understand where modern mosquito control is heading, this next method is a fascinating example. Scientists have developed a system called the Intacare trap, and what makes it so clever is that it uses the mosquito's own behavior against her. Some mosquitoes, including the Asian tiger mosquito, do not lay all their eggs in one place. Instead, they practice what is called skip oviposition. That means one female spreads her eggs across several small water sources, which helps increase the survival chances of her offspring. From a mosquito's point of view, it is a smart strategy. From a gardener's point of view, it makes hidden breeding spots much harder to control. The Indicare trap is designed around that habit. It is a dark container filled with water and an organic odor lure that attracts egg-laying females. Inside the trap is a floating piece of gauze treated with two biological tools, pyriproxyfen, which is an insect growth regulator, and Beauveria bassiana, a naturally occurring fungus. When the female mosquito lands on the gauze to lay her eggs, the powder clings to her legs through static charge. Then she flies away, carrying the treatment with her like a tiny Trojan horse. Each time she visits another hidden puddle in your yard or even in a nearby yard, she can leave behind pyriproxyfen. That turns those small water pockets into places where mosquito larvae cannot properly develop. At the same time, the natural fungus she picked up begins working on the adult mosquito. After a few days, it helps end her life before she can continue biting or spreading disease. This approach is targeted, intelligent, and far less disruptive than broad chemical spraying. Most importantly, for a living garden, it is designed to protect honeybees, pets, and the wider ecosystem while going after mosquitoes where they are most vulnerable. Part 7, the garlic force field and essential oil warnings. Finally, we come to Part 7, protecting the edges of your yard. Once you have reduced breeding sites and controlled larvae, it helps to create a barrier that makes your garden less attractive to adult mosquitoes. And for this, one of the oldest farm-style tricks comes from a very familiar place, the kitchen. Farmers and gardeners have known for generations that mosquitoes strongly dislike garlic. You can find concentrated organic garlic barrier sprays that are made with more than 99% pure garlic extract. When sprayed over lawns, shrubs, and garden edges, the plants take in those natural sulfur compounds. To us, the strong garlic smell usually fades after about 30 minutes. But to mosquitoes, with their extremely sensitive sense of smell, that treated space can seem like a wall they do not want to cross, sometimes lasting for weeks. Garlic barriers are generally considered safe for birds, fish, and bees, but there is one important rule I always follow in the garden. Never spray directly on open blooms while bees are actively working the flowers. Even when a product is safer than harsh chemicals, we still want to respect pollinators and avoid disturbing their feeding. Now, before we finish, there is a serious warning every pet owner needs to hear. Many people try to make homemade bug sprays with natural essential oils, but natural does not always mean safe. Oils such as tea tree, peppermint, eucalyptus, and citrus can be highly toxic to cats and birds. Pets process these strong volatile compounds very differently than humans do. So before using essential oils around dogs, cats, birds, or any sensitive animal, always check with your veterinarian first. Outro, reclaiming our earthly delights, my friends. When we care for a garden, a homestead, or even a small backyard, we are caring for a living system. We do not have to choose between being eaten alive by mosquitoes and covering our outdoor spaces with harsh chemicals. When we understand how mosquitoes live, we can control them in smarter ways. By dumping standing water, using BTI, building a simple bucket of doom, setting up CO2 traps, and using natural barriers like garlic with care, we can protect our families without destroying the life that makes a garden healthy. Even more importantly, we protect the delicate web of life around us. We protect the honeybees that pollinate our food. We protect the pets resting at our feet. We protect the soil, the flowers, the birds, and all the quiet helpers that make our gardens feel alive. That is how we create true earthly delights. Have you tried any natural mosquito control methods in your own yard? Share your experience in the comments, because your story may help another gardener. If this helped you, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share it with a fellow nature lover so we can keep spreading better ways to garden and protect the bees. Until next time, keep your hands in the dirt, keep your heart open to nature, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.